All right, we're live in just a sec. Welcome to the Hoosier Gridiron Report presented by IndianaHighSchoolSports.com. And tonight's episode is driven by Tom Wood Nissan, just off Keystone, off 96th Street, across from Wawa. At Tom Wood Nissan, there's 0% financing going on right now on all 2025 Rogues, Pathfinders, and Muranos, plus 1.9% financing on all 2025 Frontier Pro 4X models. Visit Tom Wood Nissan on 96th Street or at tomwoodnissan.com. I am your host, Mitch Stevens. We're excited to bring you episode 2 of the Hoosier Gridiron Report leading into the 2025 season. This is the show that each Sunday night will bring you a game of the week recap from the previous Friday night, as well as conversations from coaches around the state each week. Of course, we're headed into week 1 for tonight's episode, so there's no recap, but we're joined by 2 special guests, Zionsville head coach Scott Turnquist and Indianapolis Cathedral head coach Bill Peebles. So guys, thank you so much for making time to join us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's going to be awesome. Really appreciate you taking the time and letting us join you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Scott, I'll start with you here. Going into week 1, of course, during a typical week for your guys, 90% of the time you have 1 week, really just a couple days to look at film, break things down and make a game plan really for the upcoming opponent. Talk about how the preparation differs, given that for your first game of the season, you've known that it's going to be Pike for a lot longer than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's balancing all of that throughout the off season. There's a lot to accomplish throughout that span of time, and certainly preparing for week 1 is a big part of that. When we play a team like Pike, we've played every year for several years now. You become very familiar, and so that helps a little bit. And I'm sure Coach would speak to the same. When you play a schedule like ours, you have to really balance the off season in terms of preparing for every opponent and really doing some analysis on the teams that you're going to play all year, especially your conference opponents, balancing that with your self scout. What do we need to do better? What do we need to add, subtract, things like that. But certainly once we get closer to the actual week 1, Pike becomes a lot more of a priority. And so we try to balance that out with the previous week with the scrimmage week as well. Because with the scrimmage, you're not, at least for us, we're not always spending a ton of time game planning for our scrimmage opponent. And so we start to trend towards our week 1 opponent where we're really focusing a little more heavily on that. And so that becomes the balancing point. And really, with a team like Pike, I don't know that you ever have enough time to really game plan for that. So, we spent a lot of time tonight looking through everything, preparing everything, and just getting everything ready. And we're excited about the challenge, and it's always a great game every year. We're really close proximity, and it's become a really cool rivalry, a great game, hotly contested every year. It's pretty awesome.
Sure. And Scott, to stay on that for a moment, you mentioned playing Pike over and over again, the season opener. It's going to be the 10th consecutive time that Zionsville and Pike have met for the opener. So it makes sense that rivalry would start to build and a lot of familiarity between the schools. One other thing you mentioned was that self-scout, and you told me about that in our first conversation a little bit. What would you say makes a coach or even a player a really good self-scouter?
Well, I think one is identifying the data that you really want to look at. And I think we can kind of get lost in the weeds with all the things that you can really you can analyze. And if you get trying to analyze everything, I think you kind of get lost a little bit. And so, for us, it's prioritizing what we do foundationally. What are the things that we know we're going to do every year in and year out, those staples that we have, and how can we improve that? It's analyzing, myself and our defensive coordinator as a play caller. What are some things that we do that can maybe be fixed that aren't so good, and maybe we can look at that. But then it's also analyzing for us the progress of our team throughout the offseason. Who has elevated themselves into a role that to where they're going to be a big part of our team. How can we fit them into our system? How can we maximize the guys that we have, and what pieces of the system that we currently have in place are going to be best for the team that we have coming up? And I think Self Scout is just really coming down to really prioritizing and identifying those things that we really need to hone in on, because you can get lost if you go after everything. So I think those are the big priorities for us.
Absolutely. I can remember from high school playing days, our coach in certain film sessions replaying the same play like 25 or 30 times. And sometimes there was value in that. Sometimes he was just pointing out the same thing over and over again. But you can nitpick, right? You could find a number of different things to work on each time. So that definitely resonates there. Coach Peebles, for season openers for the Irish, since you have been the head coach 7-0 in season openers, talk about your team's preparation and what you do specifically to get your guys ready for week one.
Very similar to what Scott said, in that, you spend all summer going against each other. We're a platoon team. Scott's platoon team. We're a bigger school when it comes to football. And so it's ones versus ones all summer. You're doing that the first week or so of I guess the preseason camp when August starts. And so the week before the scrimmage, you start to trend towards your opponent. For us, it's Ben Davis. So day one, we continue to do 1v1. Started looking at Ben Davis for a couple days, and then spent about 15 minutes on Franklin Central, who was our opponent last week. So, we're very, very vanilla going into the scrimmage, just like everybody else is. When it comes to, you mentioned 7-0 since I've been here. Don't jinx me, please.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, yeah. But the ball bounces your way. You have to prepare the guys. We've got a great group of kids and great kids in General Cathedral, but we have a great opponent. And ultimately, you're trying to prepare all summer and preseason here and getting into week one. Ultimately, the biggest one you want to win is the last game. And so week one's great. It's important, but your overall focus is, how do you prepare your team? How do you mold your team and get them pointed in the right direction so you have a great tournament run and win the last game?
Absolutely. And you talked about, opening up with Ben Davis. That is, your entire schedule is challenging for both of you guys across the board. That's a massive game coming up on Friday. It'll be at Butler. Going into the season, Cathedral is ranked number 4 in the state for 5A. They have Ben Davis at 7. We know these preseason rankings, you just mentioned you got to win the last game, right? So they don't always mean a whole lot. But talk a little more about Ben Davis, some of the challenges that they present and what you guys need to be prepared for.
Yeah, Coach Van does a great job. 2 years ago, they knocked us out of the 6A tournament in the regionals with a great championship team. They won the state 2 years ago. They kind of did a little bit of a rebuild last year, and I think they've rebuilt. They look really good on film. They're young, they're fast, they're explosive on both sides of the ball. Very well coached. Coach Sumner is their defense coordinator. Was one of my assistants back in the day when I was head coach at Southport. Great guys. Good football coaches, really good football team, and we'll have our hands full.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it. We will actually be covering that game, IndianaHighSchoolSports.com. I have the color commentary, so looking forward to get an up close and personal look at that. You might be able to see there's a Joe Burrow poster behind me. As a side note, I'm a diehard Bengals fan. I'm curious, has that organization reached out to you, Coach Peebles, about how to win their first game?
Well, I think the Bengals and the Colts should both probably reach out, right?
Yeah.
It's been a while for
Yeah.
both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now I'm a Joe Burrows fan. I like the Bengals, although I'm a Colts
Yeah.
fan. And obviously, Teddy Karras is an offensive lineman for the Bengals, so I'm always rooting for Teddy, Cathedral grads. So, nobody's reached out to me.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. They think they have it under control, I guess. And Ted, as one other side note, Ted is an awesome guy. One of my good friends from Cincinnati. His name's Robert Hunt. He was the manager for our basketball team back when I was in high school. He has Down syndrome, and he is just an amazing person. And Ted has recently kind of taken him under his wing. He's doing really good work with, it's called Cincy Hat, but he also in Indianapolis, Village of Marici. So just wanted to make a little plug for that because the special needs community has it's near and dear to my heart. So yeah, we're rooting for Ted too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we're going to switch gears here. Quick reminder and thank you to our sponsor at Tom Wood Nissan. Visit tomwoodnissan.com for more. Scott, Coach Turnquist, there's been a big shift really over the past 5-10 years, particularly on social media. And in my opinion, it's happening when kids are way too young, some of the things that they're exposed to in terms of this, but this emphasis on a personal brand, and people, kids when they're 12, 13, 14 years old on social media. How do you address that type of thinking for guys when they get into your program and make it more of a team first mindset?
Yeah, I mean, we spend some time going through that whole process with them as it relates to football. I mean, you always talk with the young men about what they're putting out on social media from a personal standpoint, and how that can backfire on you, the things that you want to avoid and all that kind of thing. And that's part of, the growth and leadership things that we try to do throughout the off season. But we spend a lot of time with the guys that are really interested in, maybe playing at the next level, and how to put together your Twitter profile, how to manage an Instagram account as directly as it relates to football. You try to coach them through the personal stuff. There's not much you can do about that unless something goes wrong, which you pray it never does. But from a recruiting standpoint, we try to talk them through what is a good Twitter profile look like? What should you put in your bio? What should you put out on social media? What are the things? How should you send out a tweet or an X or whatever it's called now? How would you send that out if you got an offer? What are those steps that you take? And we really look for people in our community and people around the area, experts that we can talk to or bring into to our school to talk with the kids as well. And guys like Steve Wiltfong, who's a big, was with 24/7 and now with a different company, but national recruiting profile guy, lives in our community. We want to bring him in and say, hey, give us some background on how to manage this, on how to best promote you as a player. But like you said, keeping it where it's a team first kind of thing. And I think the biggest piece that we've found is that it's okay for kids to promote themselves. It's okay for them to put themselves out there. It's okay for them to celebrate offers that they get or milestones or things like that. But the focus is always saying, hey, if I'm going to put this out there, does it negatively impact our team, my teammates, my coaches, my school, my community in any way? I mean, if you can answer that, would your mom be proud of it? Right. I mean, things like that. And if they can check those boxes, most of the time it's going to be good. And we do talk to them on occasion. Hey, we're not going to put highlights of a scrimmage out. Right. So we're not going to put stuff that's ours. If you're going to put game highlights, we never disrespect our opponent. We always highlight ourselves, things like that. And so just talk, it takes time though. I mean, it does take time and instruction. And but it's just amazing how savvy these kids are with all of that now. They've grown up with it. They know how it works. And so they really are good with it, but they still need guidance. And that's where we kind of try to work that in. And it's part of our staff too. It's not just me, certainly. We try to attack it from a lot of different angles and have coaches that are directly involved in our social media and help them curate theirs as well. And so it's been really beneficial to take it from that standpoint.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's become increasingly more prevalent, and you can't really, there's, of course, like anything else that grows in that much popularity, there's going to be benefits to it, which I think there are many, and then there's drawbacks. So, one line of thinking, if you've, coached for years and this was, never really a thing, is just to look at the negatives and kind of encourage your kids to stay off of it. Right. But that's just not a reality. They're all of them are on it. So I like that answer too. It's just kind of how do we make the best of it and portray the school and themselves in the best way.
No question. And the reality is it's a good platform. It's a good medium. It's not,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times it gets a negative connotation, but there are big positives to it as well. And if they use it the right way, it's really beneficial, and it's a way to connect them with coaches at the next level. It's a way for them to positively promote themselves, and I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Coach Peebles, what are your thoughts on this type of thing, social media and promoting
Very
themselves?
similar. I mean, it sounds like he's doing a lot of the same things at Zionsville that we're doing at Cathedral when it comes to trying to mentor the kids to get, bottom line, it's real simple. Be positive. If you're putting negative stuff on any social media, if you're putting obviously yourself out there when you're not doing the right thing, it's going to hurt you. So it's about being positive at all times. Nothing wrong with promoting yourself. We actually have a website dedicated to recruiting just for our kids at Cathedral High School. It's cathedralfootball.com.
We use the same company actually, so it's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and it's
Great.
good, and it does a good job. It links up to Huddle, it links up to X. So it's we are want our kids to promote themselves. We just want them to do it in a positive way, in a productive way, and we always say, if you want to go to college, put good stuff on film, and put it out there. And if you're good enough, people will find you. That being said, I've not had a lot of experience with our guys putting a lot of negative stuff out. But when it does happen, we have to nip it in the bud and be on top of it. And I'm the old guy here, and I'm the guy that's probably the least savvy in this of the three of us when it comes to social media. But I have some young coaches that help me out in navigating that whole world. And it's a team effort to make it happen.
Absolutely. And I'm guessing that, so as a part of that recruiting process, would you say, so helping them put together the tape, I would imagine that you're helping them also with what to put on that tape, right? And how long to make it, and kind of, you guys know what the coaches are looking for, and can kind of give them guidance that way too.
We do. We'll say, hey, you go ahead and put it together. Then we'll sit down, go through it. Obviously, your first, 8 to 10 plays need to be your best plays, and they're not the ones you think are the coolest. They're the ones
Yeah.
that the college coaches are going to mean most to them, and it might just be a hustle play where you're not catching a touchdown pass, and we guide them in that way. Bottom line is, when a college coach looks at it, you want them to continue looking at it after the first 10 plays, because if they don't like the first 10 plays, they're going to turn it off.
Yeah, for sure. Wanted to talk a little bit about the structure of the Indiana State playoffs. And Coach Peebles, I'll start with you on this one. It's really it's a lot of fun the way that it's done, but it's also an interesting format where you could have a great regular season. You could be number one, and then you're matched up with a team that finished number two or number three. Is there any type of mental preparation that you do with your guys for, potentially what type of draw you get, or is that just something that fans think about?
It's probably more fans.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think, New Pal and us are both new to 5A, and I think they're number one, and we're in the top 3, 4. And so something like that could potentially happen. Ultimately, we have a board in our locker room that talks about our opponent, where we're playing, what time, and all that. And where it says opponent in that slot, it doesn't have Ben Davis, Brownsburg, St. X, and Chittard. It has Irish, 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 Irish. Can't worry about who you're playing, whether we are playing the number one team in the state, which we're going to be playing week 2, number 7 ranked team in Ben Davis, or a team, my former school that I used to coach at, Southport, who's had a tough couple of years, who's probably not going to be ranked. You can't worry about who you're playing. You got to take care of. We always say, don't let the Irish beat the Irish. And so that is the attitude we take when it comes to the tournament, whether we're in 4A, 5A, or 6A. We're a 4A team that's played in 5 and 6A the last few years. So we don't worry about any of that. We just want to be the best that we can be and control our controllables.
I love that idea and that mindset of just focusing on ourselves and not beating yourself, right? In the Irish, Irish, Irish. I also don't want I don't want to make either of you guys have to, pick your favorite kid, so to speak, but I do want to use our show here to give some shine to players that have stood out. So when it comes to that culture that you're talking about, Coach Peebles, and the team first mantra. Maybe one or two guys that you've seen step up as leaders in the last few weeks.
Sure. Well, we just voted for captains the other day, so we have to recognize Kyle Harden, linebacker, 3-year starter for us, Cameron Kors, 2-year starter at quarterback, and then Jackson Harvey, who's a 2-year starter at wide receiver. Obviously, their teammates voted them to be captains because of what they've done, not just this offseason, but for their 4 years at Cathedral High School. But we've had a couple guys that have really stepped up leadership-wise. Zion Hill, defensive back. He was a part-time starter last year, but long, good player. Has really taken the weight room seriously, his grades seriously. He just picked up an offer and he's committed to Ball State. He's done a great job this offseason. A young man named Terry Green, who was a JV football player for us, is a defensive lineman last year, and again, same thing. Bought into the weight room, bought into the work ethic, and is a difference maker and is wreaking havoc with our offensive line as a defensive lineman. So we've got some guys who stepped up this year who I think can play in college, but are going to be first-time full-time starters, and those are just two examples.
Thank you for sharing that. And Coach Turnquist, same thing for you. So whether it's captains or other guys on the team that have stepped up in terms of leadership that you've been impressed with.
Yeah, we have 4 captains this season, Brady Jung and Brody Ashelman on the defensive side that, both of those guys are 2-year starters now, coming into their senior year. And on the offensive side, Gabe Anderson and Sam Manna, both of them, were 2-year or 3-year starters in some capacity. And so, they're doing a great job, and they're leading in a variety of ways. So not one of those guys is the same. And that's kind of a neat thing that kind of come at that leadership role from all sides. But, I really got to commend our senior class. I think coming into this season, I really challenged them coming off of last season, just because I felt like, they needed to come together. They needed to, be a group that was more connected in with the group entirely. And I really challenged them to do that. And they took that really seriously in the off season. They did a lot of things going through our leadership program. They did a lot of things together. They organized a lot of things that they could do with all of their teammates together. We had several kids apply to be captains, and all of them got votes, and all of them got a lot of votes. And so, the senior class I'm really proud of in terms of the way that they really bought into what I was asking them to do from a leadership standpoint. And I really do think it's going to pay dividends. I mean, we lost some talent last year, and I think some people kind of look at that as a big challenge to overcome. But I think the way that these guys have really bought into what we're doing, I'm really excited to see what they can do. It's a class that I'm just really proud of the journey they've been on and how far they've advanced from where we were when we started this whole thing at the end of last season.
Sure. When you talk about that process of voting for the captains, right? And then you said, hey, there were a lot of guys that were probably deserving, that have shown a lot of leadership, that got votes, but they didn't end up being captains. Is there a process? Are you going through, kind of one-on-one, and how important are those conversations with the guys that you've seen that growth in, but they didn't get voted as captains?
Sure. Yeah. So I learned, I got to shout out Coach Larry McWhorter, who, is a longtime Zionsville head coach, Indiana high school coaching legend, hopefully soon to be a Hall of Famer. But, I got an opportunity to learn from him, Coach Wright at Carmel, Coach Hebert. We all did, they all did different things to get to that point where you're voting on captains. But one thing, I kind of took pieces from each of them. And so we kind of go through a process. It varies each year based on our needs. But, our players have to apply to be captains. So they fill out an application. They submit that to me. Depending on how much time we have, we sit down and we have a one-on-one, and it's kind of like a job interview. If we can fit it in, we talk about, why do you want to be a captain? What qualifications do you have? All those sorts of things. And, it's a good learning opportunity for them too, because they have to come in and have that interaction where they're really trying to accomplish something they want. Hopefully someday that'll help them in the job search or something like that. But going through that process is kind of cool. And I got to give all the credit to Coach Mack and Coach Wright and Coach Hebert, because those things that I kind of use come from them. And I thought all those things were really neat. So we try to implement them, and it's been really beneficial.
Yeah, I love that, the application process, and they're going to take it seriously, of course, if they're if they express interest in being a captain one way or the other. But if you have them go through that process, I think really heightens it. So that's great. Coach Peebles, similar process, or how do you guys go about it?
Pretty cool. We have not done the application process. It's 20 plus years of being a head coach now, and I've let the kids just vote for it. And it's always been has to be a senior. And what I've found is 99.9% of the time our kids get it right. They're not voting just for the best player or the most popular player. They're voting for the guys that they would be willing to get in the foxhole with when the Bulls start flying during the season. And so I trust our kids to do it. Very, very few times have I said, wow, this one surprised me. It's usually been right on target. And so I do like that idea. I might steal it too. I might go through that process moving forward.
It's been really cool. I will say that, I mean, there's times where you can't fit it in because it is time consuming, and it's unfortunately the interview process was something we couldn't do this year, unfortunately. But I mean, we had we had like 13 kids or 14 kids apply to be captain. I'm like, guys, I can't meet with everybody in this short of time, but it was pretty neat to see their responses. So we just shared their responses and kind of gave everybody their resume, which is kind of a workaround for that. But yeah, Coach Mack, Coach Hebert, Coach Wright, that's pretty cool what they came up with, and I'm blessed to be able to use it. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, that is awesome. We are going to shift gears here and talk about preparation for the playoffs and a little bit on last couple seasons results with you, Coach Turnquist. Quick reminder that tonight's episode again is driven by Tom Wood Nissan, just east of Keystone off 96th Street, across from the Wawa there on 96th. And again, check it out at tomwoodnissan.com. So Coach Peebles mentioned at the very beginning, hey, going 7-0 in the openers is great, but it's about winning the last one. In the 2020 and 2021 seasons, didn't win the last one, but made unbelievable runs and went all the way to the state title game. In both of those regular seasons, you guys lost 3 of the last 4. So talk a little bit about that and how you can kind of take those lumps during the regular season and then how you get your guys back up and ready because they took off from there in both those seasons.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think, anytime, if you look around our state, I mean, I think we talk about it. Whenever anybody brings up our schedule, it is really challenging. But I think I'd defy you to find a team that doesn't have a challenging schedule in our state, right? I mean, the football in our area is unbelievable. And it's not just the players, the coaching here is phenomenal. I mean, I would put our coaching in our area up with against anybody anywhere. And so, sometimes you have to make sure that you're growing through some of those things. And, for us, we're a smaller school relative to the other schools in our conference. And I think, sometimes we just got to make sure that as we're going through that journey, we fight like crazy to win every single game. That's the mindset and that's the goal. But if we're not able to do that, how can we extract whatever we can from that? And I think if you don't capitalize on a loss, you're doing yourself a disservice. And I think if you compile all those lessons, and you use those things to your advantage once you get to the playoff scenario, it gives you such a better chance to be successful. And, no matter who you're playing, you talked about the draw and all that sort of thing. And I think, there's really very, very rarely that you would ever say, man, we just got the greatest draw ever. Because everybody's good. And I think it's about trying to extract everything you can from wins, losses, and everything in between, and really trying to get the kids to play the best that they possibly can. Right. And that's always our goal. And if we're trying to achieve that, we're maximizing, we're tapping out everything that they can possibly do. That's when we feel like we're really being successful. And those teams that we had back in those 2 years, unfortunately we ran into Coach Peebles and his team, and they were phenomenal. And you're right. You get on a roll, and you get some momentum going, and but then also, we had really good players in those years too, and they put things together at the right time. But I think the reason that they did that is because they were able to really see what we needed to do better based on the success or lack thereof that we might have had against certain teams. And so it's just squeezing everything you can out of those experiences and trying to make sure that they're using it in the right way.
And Coach Peebles, I know from some of our conversation, you would probably echo a lot of what Coach Turnquist just said, and the tough schedule, preparation. I'm curious to hear your thoughts because Coach Turnquist, you just talked about this area, Indiana high school football, having so much talent from players, but especially coaches. Coach Peebles, you guys go out of state on a consistent basis, and you're playing some of the best teams in the state of Ohio. So whether it's St. Xavier, Elder, Moeller, Trotwood, Madison, I'm curious if there's anything that you've seen in your years of playing at least one of these teams a year. This is something we can expect in terms of how they play, how physical they are, their coaches. What's kind of stood out to you? It's maybe different.
You're gonna laugh at this, and whole Scott is our officials in Indiana are way better than their officials. Every time we go there, it
No
doesn't go
question.
well for us. I'm telling you right now.
I've heard that about the pit at Elder, that somehow it doesn't feel good
Yeah.
if you're the visitor.
Here are some differences. Their overtime's different. None of the schools, whether Kentucky or Ohio or Michigan that we've played since I've been at Cathedral, that they don't have play clocks at the end. There's some like weird differences where every school in Indiana has a play clock that you can count on. So you do have to prepare for little idiosyncrasies that are different at the JV and freshman level. No kickoffs in Ohio. Now, when it comes to just playing football, they have really good players. They have really good coaches. I would put the teams that we're playing out of the St. X's, the Molars, the Trinities. They're playing MIC level, high level Central Indiana schools. They're very similar when it comes to talent and coaching, but there are certain little things you do have to prepare for when you're going out of state.
Sure. And so I would imagine, but just clarifying here. So if you're the visiting team, that's where those rules come into effect. If they have to come here, it's maybe
Yeah,
a little more of an advantage.
Exactly. Last year, St. X came to us and they had to put a kickoff team together in a week. Our
Yeah.
JV and freshmen, when they are going to go there this year, they don't have to worry about kickoff and kickoff returns. So they're again minor differences when it comes to some of the rules and small things, but football's football. They have really good players. Football's the teams that we're playing from out of state are teams that are good football teams that are willing to travel. And so, we're always getting the other state's best.
Sure. So yeah, that JV team, they had to put together a kickoff team and they had to prepare for unbiased officiating, right?
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
keep that here. No. Cool. So anyway, switching gears from off the field here, or from on to off the field a little bit. Coach Turnquist, obviously your teams from, I guess you're probably with different camps and whatnot, starting to meet kids in the area, even younger than this age, but you're primarily coaching your program 14 to 18-year-olds. Mental health is a huge topic and an area of concern, particularly in males at that age. What are some things that your staff try to do to address players' mental health and to make sure that they're right and feeling good, outside of football?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really, really tough thing because football it's such a challenging game, right? You practice more than you play. Practice is really difficult, can be, right? I mean, you're dealing with the weather, you're doing all these different things, and then it takes time. It takes time after school. And I think it's probably very similar with coach at a high level academic school like ours are. You add that academic element in, and our students are really, really challenged academically. And so it's really hard to balance, what we need to do to prepare the players to play with the needs that they have. And so a lot of things we try to promote some things that they can do off the field, right? So things that they can get together and do and enjoy. We've done all sorts of different things in the summer and during the season, whether it's, cookouts, with senior cookouts, father-son cookouts. We went to a quarry in southern Indiana and, jumped off cliffs and they had a local pickleball establishment welcome us this year. We'll go away to camps in the summer, just some things where they can connect. And I think, once we find a way to connect them that way, they can find the relationships that they have, and that really benefits them. But I think also, there's also the idea that if a student or an athlete has an issue, it's trying to be as empathetic as we can to that issue and trying to let them, if they need to take time away, step away. If they need our help, find a way to help them. And certainly there's protocols in place if certain things happen. But just being aware of that and allowing them to have some time away. And I'll admit, like, there's times where, if a player needs to step away, that's hard because you want them there, and all that kind of thing. So you have to take football and understand that football is not the number one thing, which being what, our profession, that's really hard. Because I love the game. I love football. That's I live and breathe it. And that's, so anything that gets in the way of that sometimes is a challenge, but just trying to make sure that within myself and our staff, we know that that's not the number one thing. And if there are bigger issues, then we got to make sure that we address them and help them through it whenever we can. So, and luckily we have great staff around us that we can use as resources, that the kids can talk to, that they have support if they need it as well.
Yeah, I'd imagine it really is tough to keep that perspective in mind when you have, especially all throughout camp, you have kind of this, one track mind and a mission of getting all the guys where they need to be mentally, physically. It's such a sport too. And I'll have you comment on this too, Coach Peebles. It's such a sport where in any coaching, there needs to be elements of tough love, right? In football, especially, it's a hard nose. You're being tough on your guys in a lot of scenarios. So I would imagine when you think of the mental health type of, side of things, it's really just a balance, I guess you would say, between, hey, we need to coach them hard, but like Coach Turnquist said, if they're going through something, allowing them that space to step away if it's necessary.
Yeah, it's, football is a unique sport in that, Scott's coming from a 6A school, has a lot of players in the program. We have 170, 180 players in our program at Cathedral. And when you're playing with that many kids, and you honestly, to really play at the highest level, you need about that many kids, whether it's, you need a lot of players in your program. But when you have that many players, not everybody's going to college to play football. Not everybody's going to get a scholarship. Not everybody's going to start. And some of them, we have students who graduate who never play what I would consider a meaningful minute, and that they are at the end of the game, winning big, losing big, but they stay with the program. And so the question is, why do they stay with the program? And I think it is important. And I think football coaches do the best job of this because we need so many kids, is that every kid in the program is important. And, we have a motto at Cathedral: it's not what you get, it's what you become, from Cathedral football. And this past year, we started a Big Brother program because we recognize for a freshman and sophomore, there's some of them there's no light at the end of the tunnel just from a football standpoint. And so it's easy to quit. And so we've tied our seniors with our sophomores and our juniors with our freshmen to try to get them to understand, hey, there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is a purpose here. And playing the scout team is a great thing because you're really helping the team. And I think that, when it comes to the mental aspect and then the mental health aspect, having the connections, the positive interactions with other human beings within our program is incredibly important. And then on the other side is when you have somebody who is in a dark spot, being able to recognize that and getting help and calling the parents. And we have mental health professionals on our campus. So, hey, we identified we're really worried about this young man. Let's do an intervention here. So I think that the personal connections, player to player and coach to player, are incredibly important to build up self-esteem and then also identify things when things aren't going well.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear from both you guys your perspective on that, especially just being huge programs here in the area, and I'm sure viewers will love those thoughts and just different systems that you guys have in place and staff that you have to try to address those things because it's extremely important. So um, wanted to wrap things up here with you guys. I guess you may have already hit on this a little bit and just talking about some of your guys, how much you love the game, and and especially the mental health topic there. But Coach Turnquist, we'll start with you on this. A message for the parents is what we'll call this to wrap up. So parents, what can they expect after their son has been in your program for 4 years? Or I guess the ideal of what how you're trying to shape them and what they can expect to see in terms of growth.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for us is we're trying to use football as a vehicle to make better young men, right? And that's really what we're trying to accomplish and try to be as holistic as we can in a year-round scenario. So, we're hopeful that that their young men grow in their leadership, that they grow in some of the successful habits that are necessary to be a great father, man, employee, time management, being on time, some study habits, some, attention to detail, those types of things that you can gain from football. Quite frankly, we hope they have a little bit more toughness, right? I mean, I think today it's easy to lose some of that when you don't go through hard things, and going through football is a challenge. But as we all know, right, when you have success or when you are a part of a team, some of that toughness and those things come together. And if you have that, when you get to be an older adult, you got a leg up in a lot of ways. And so, a lot of the things that we hope that they gain some lasting relationships, with their teammates, with their coaches. We hope that they walk away with people that they know are in their corner, that they can call on us if they ever need us. We hope that they, are just better citizens, top to bottom. They do the right thing in the community. They do the right thing in their relationships, friendships and otherwise. And we want to see overall growth in every aspect. In any way that we can positively impact that, we want to do it. And for the most part, I mean, I think if you ask our parents, they see a lot of that, and that's something we're really proud of. Football's challenging. It's not always easy. It's not always fun, right? Fun is winning and fun is having success and seeing growth. But hopefully, 10 years from now, they can come back and say, hey, my son really became this, or, the kid can come back and say, I'm a doctor, or, my boss says, being 15 minutes early is just a huge deal, all that kind of thing. And so hopefully we can see that and their parents can see it as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Man, it's a little unfair that one of you gets to go first on that question, I guess. You did. But
Thanks
Coach
for doing
Peebles,
that.
yeah, we talked about this ahead of
Yeah.
time. No, Coach Peebles, extra thoughts you have on that for parents
It's
of
interesting. I
Cathedral.
was looking at the screen here, and I think both Scott and I smirked when you asked about parents.
Mhm.
And because the kids, and I've been doing this a long time, coaching over 30 years, head coach over 20 years. The kids haven't changed a lot. Some of the expectations of parents have a little bit. And it honestly, I think it's really important for parents to buy in to what we're trying to do. And Scott said it exactly right, and that we're trying to mold and young people to become better people. It's as I said earlier, it's not what you get, it's what you become through Cathedral football or through the Zionsville football. It's what you become through that process, because it is hard. And sometimes getting parents to buy into the hard part of that is difficult. That being said, I have had multiple parents whose kids have gone through here where I've butted head with, have come back and said, "Man, I think I was wrong." And it's because as long as we're honest and care about the kids and put the kids first, and the honesty from a coach is incredibly important. Um, Telling a parent your son is second string because the guys in front of him are just a little bit better. It's hard to do, but if you're honest with people and you shoot people straight, it's well better received. But it is still hard in today's world for parents to hear that. Um, it Our job is to prepare kids to be better students, to be better human beings, to be better people, and be better football players. And Scott and I both know if we don't win, we won't be head coaches at our schools for very long. And so we do have to put our best players on the field. And we're making decisions that aren't always easy. The bottom line is we're trying to do what's best for kids and making them better human beings and put a good product on the field at the same time. Um, and so I think that as long as parents know that you're shooting them straight, being honest, that you really care about their kids, which you have to, that the message in most cases is going to be received well.
Absolutely. Well put. Well, Coach Peebles, Coach Turnquist, I really appreciate the time. And thank you to everybody that tuned in to episode 2 of the Hoosier Gridiron Report. For next week, our game of the week, incidentally, is going to be Ben Davis at Cathedral. It's going to be played at Butler. So we'll have the broadcast of that game on IndianaHighSchoolSports.com on Friday night. Do a quick recap of the game next Sunday night. And we have Cardinal Ritter head coach LeVar Johnson and Cecina head coach Dan Harris as guests for next week. So again, Hoosier Gridiron Report driven by Tom Wood Nissan. Again, guys, thank you so much for the time tonight.
Enjoyed being here. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you very much. Great